Welcome to Gold Derby. I'm senior editor Denton Davidson here with Emmy winner Wendy O'Brien, casting director for Abbott Elementary, and she's nominated again this year for the ABC comedy as well as the Roku TV movie Weird: The Al Yankovic Story. So, Wendy, congratulations. You've now been nominated a total of 4 times, and you won last year. What was that night like for you when you won for Abbott Elementary, and what does it mean to be back with not one but 2 projects this year?
Well, I would say it was surreal. It was, truly surreal. And I've been doing this since college, so it's, I guess, 30 years. So I feel like now I can, if and when I retire, at least my parents back home on the farm know, something happened. So that's good because they don't get a lot of the shows that I work on. They don't have cable, or streaming really. But it was great. It was wonderful.
Well, let's get into Abbott Elementary. What was it like to come back for season 2? What are your top priorities this season now that your main cast is already in place? What were your top challenges?
I think a lot of the challenges, probably the hardest challenge was just to continuously find new kids. The good news was that as our season is a school year, so all the kids that graduated from kindergarten moved into the grade 1, all the kids from grade 1 moved into grade 2. So it's sort of, they get to stick around, but we still needed to keep populating more kids. And, it's always a challenge once you upgrade them from an extra, you can't go backwards. So we only had the budget for so many that could speak. And a lot of the kids really had earned a spot to get lines. And so it was sort of finding that dynamic of when they could move up or not, which I think was a lot of the times on set. So that was probably the biggest challenge. But then just the success of the show made casting just, we got more incoming calls than outgoing, at that point, which was really nice.
So that relieves the pressure a little bit because people have seen the success of the show now.
Absolutely. And we had so many agents had reached out and just a lot of new fans from season 1. And when we were doing the pilot, it was in COVID. The show hadn't aired. Not a lot of people knew about the show. It was network. It was, we had a couple things that were challenges out of the gate. And so I think by the time we got to season 2, it was just so fluid and again, it just seemed more and more people wanted to be a part of it or had an appreciation for the show and Quinta and the writing and just the goodness of the show.
And of course, you have Taraji P. Henson, who made quite an impact as Janine's mother. Talk about Taraji coming on board and what impressed you the most about her Emmy-nominated performance?
She probably had the most of any guest star, the most meat in any of the episodes. So I think once she confirmed, really, really, really confirmed, I think, I think they were wise to just write for and to her and her strengths. So it's just, she ate it up. I thought she was fantastic.
And I heard Lauren Weidman almost had the role of Melissa in the original casting process. And that, of course, is played by Lisa Ann Walter. So now you go back and have her playing the sister. Can you explain that a little bit? And how great was that to pull her back into the world of Abbott? And is that something that happens often for you as a casting director, is to have someone and you're like, God, they're great, but I just need to go a slightly different direction, but I'm going to keep that name at the tip of my tongue?
It always happens. That's the great, your repertoire keeps getting bigger and bigger. And people who are close on one show, even with different the same producer, but like 6 years later or 3 projects later, and they remember that actor as well. And so they bring them up or they have something in mind for them. And they remember the audition you brought them in like 4 years ago. So it does happen. And yeah, Weidman, it was the 2 that we tested at Studio and Network. And it really was, they were both so wonderful. And, Lisa was the one of the day that got it. But I think everybody loved Lauren so much. So when there was an opportunity to fold her into the mix, it just felt perfect.
And great chemistry it led to. I mean, you couldn't have, I mean, uh, can you predict that stuff? Is that just what you sort of cross your fingers and hope for? Or is that just, I mean, it's your talent. You're an Emmy nominated, Emmy winning casting director.
No, I think it's always you hope and you think you know the ingredients and what's going to work. But I think, both of those women are just, they've been doing it a long time. Neither have an ego. They're both funny first. And so if you were to bet money, you would think that that would align and that they would really appreciate each other and respect each other. So I don't know if they knew each other previously, but the writing was on the wall that it should have been good friends.
Talk a little bit about the other roles this season that were the most fun to cast, because you had so many great guest stars. You had Leslie Odom Jr., Ayo Edebiri. I mean, what a great year she's having. So can you walk me through some of the most fun characters to cast this season, and how it differed from last season when you're really trying to start a show fresh?
Mm-hmm. Well, Leslie was, we read so many great people for the Draymond role, and that was a little bit of a different role on the show, in that we weren't trying to find somebody who was funny first. He was a little bit more serious of a character. He was supposed to feel a little out of place from everyone else. So we had great people read, and then Leslie had expressed interest. But he was doing press. So it was really touch and go if we were even going to align the dates, because the role was slated to come back, which makes it even more complicated with the schedule to have somebody, come back 2 months later, 3 months later. So that one was challenging just in trying to lock him in, but we had some really great people reading. I also loved our Ashley.
Yeah.
It was just, she was one of my favorites. She just made me laugh the whole way through it. And she was so great on Curb. It felt like we could just have fun and keep exploring kind of wacky personalities that felt real.
You have, so many great credits, but a lot of comedy. What do you like the most about casting comedy? And what's the most difficult thing about it?
Depending on the project, I mean, I enjoy it because I love laughing. So, that
always helps.
Yeah, the auditions are much more fun. But I think, depending on the tone of the show, most of my shows, we don't wink at the camera at all. It's very subtle comedy generally. So it's finding people who can find that mix. And that's what's the great thing about doing drama as well is there's an overlap on shows like, watching The Bear, you just see that overlap so much. So it's really, it's a great time for actors. You can sort of tap into both their strengths for sure, if they have them.
And when you take a moment and just reflect on Abbott Elementary in general and the phenomenon that it has become, what has it been like for you to just be part of this show?
What a gift. It's just been incredible. I mean, I feel like I've worked on, wonderful projects with wonderful people, and it's that lightning in a bottle. The pilots I was sure were going to get picked up didn't, and then just to watch this happen, but then to watch it from a front row seat and just to see so many good people be rewarded. It's really been a career highlight. It's just been a joy.
And when you see people like Taraji and Quinta and Cheryl Lee Ralph and Janelle James, and everyone is getting nominated for this show, I mean, does that feel like a win for you as well? I mean, you're helping to do the casting. Obviously, Quinta created the show. You didn't have to cast her, but that has to feel good for you to see people that you've hired, given a spotlight to, and see them shine in this way.
It's wonderful. I mean, it's wonderful to be a part of that, and then to see writing that transforms their characters and talents, and that's spectacular that the writing can continuously grow these characters in such a meaningful way. I think that's been it's great to be a part of that.
Yeah, it's been such an incredible season, and what an evolution, and incredible work you've done. Congratulations, Wendy, and good luck at the Emmys.
Oh, thanks so much. Thank you.
Welcome to Gold Derby. I'm senior editor Denton Davidson here with Emmy nominees Charlene Lee and Claire Koonce, casting directors for the limited series Beef on Netflix. Wow, what a hit this turned out to be. 13 Emmy nominations, including Best Limited Series. What was your reaction that morning when the nominations came out, and how did you hear the news? How proud are you of the series and just to be part of this?
Well, when I tell you, we screamed more than a little bit when we saw those nominations.
Were you together?
No, unfortunately, we were not. Go ahead, Jai.
We were not together. We were obviously very excited for the entire show and for
actors,
all the actors who were nominated in their respective categories as well.
Yeah,
and then you sort of have to scroll through the paper to see, like, are we nominated? But you had to. Did you have a good idea after you had so many acting nominations? You're like, ooh, we got a shot.
Well, to be honest, go ahead, Jai.
No, go ahead, Claire.
I was gonna say, to be honest, since it's our first nomination, we really didn't know what to expect because you kind of don't know how this stuff works. And so, yeah, we were thrilled to see that all of our actors here were being nominated for the first time, but we weren't sure if it was going to be the same for us. And we were very thrilled to find out that we were.
Yeah, this show, what a last couple of years it's been. It's sort of a renaissance of Asian American stories and characters, films and TV shows coming out and having so much success. And we can go back to Crazy Rich Asians, and then of course Everything Everywhere All at Once just steamrolled the Oscars, and Joyride just came out, and then Beef was part of this. Beef is part of it. And what has it been like to just see the progress of Hollywood and what audiences really want and gravitate to? I mean, these are huge success stories.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's truly been so refreshing to see. Obviously, Crazy Rich Asians was like widely successful, but to kind of see the range of different stories that have come out after that, from Beef to even Joyride, which came out recently, to I know Shortcomings is coming out this week as well, just to kind of see the wide range of content. And
yeah, or something like Past Lives that just came out. It's just,
yes,
I think it kind of proves the fact that, like, I think people have been saying for a while that there's room for more storytelling and more types of characters and more types of people that come from all walks of life. And I feel like these projects that do that well just prove that.
Well, let's talk about casting Beef. I want to start with Ali Wong because she's the sort of revelation for me. I've seen her do stand-up and she's obviously funny, but she nailed this. And I understand her and Steve came attached. But what was it like for you two to see, okay, these two are top billed. How do we build down from that? What was your thought process going into that process?
Specifically, we knew we kind of were obviously building around Stephen and Ali, and initially focused a lot on the husband character who Joseph Lee wound up playing, and young Mazzino, who played Danny, Stephen Yeun's brother. So we kind of knew that was like a starting point for chemistry, but very fortunately, even though we were in the middle of COVID, we were able to do a lot of callbacks on Zoom and a few in person, and having Stephen and Ali being able to read with them was instrumental in making sure we got the right pieces for those roles.
Yeah, but Denton, one of the things that we kind of went in with, in addition to what Char's saying about getting that chemistry so important, we were also weaving that in with the story that Sunny is telling, because it's not just the two of them that are the only elements that you're building around. It's the world as a whole. It's the tone, it's the voice, it's working with Jake Schreier and Hikari as directors. You kind of have to build all that together.
And you've got two supporting actors nominated as well. I mean, Ali and Stephen were both nominated. We have young Mazzino and Joseph Lee, two totally different characters, equally deserving of recognition. Now, young Mazzino is so charming. He's got sort of this innocence to him. This was a breakout. What did you see in him that made you say, all right, this is Paul. We got to have this guy?
Kind of speaking to what we kind of touched upon earlier with the chemistry reads, what's so interesting about those two characters, and specifically with Paul, is his chemistry with Danny, Steven's character, obviously matters quite a bit because they're brothers. But in addition, as if you've seen the show, you find out the chemistry with Allie's character Amy also matters quite a bit. So it was really cool to kind of see that transpire, and how, and I think that was like a huge part of what made, in seeing those two very different types of chemistries, you were kind of able to see like glimpses of what he brought to screen.
And something that Joseph and Young had in common, even though their characters are wildly different, I do think on the page, Paul, Young's character, could be written off as, kind of this idiot gamer kid. But Young brought this, like you said, innocence and this heart to it that you kind of were cheering for him, even though he made some choices that you were like, you shouldn't have said that. And the same thing with Joseph's character, where George could have been written off as this kind of toxically positive character that doesn't listen to her. But in casting Joseph, we wanted to show the nuance of someone who really is earnestly trying his best and just earnestly does not get Allie's character, Amy. So finding kind of those nuances and the complexities of the characters so that they're not so easily dismissed. They're not just a villain. They're not just like Paul's characters doesn't just hang on. It's really someone that you grow to root for and want them to succeed just as much as Danny and Amy's characters.
And Joseph is sort of this, like, the straight man of this show. I mean, that's not always easy to be, the one without the crazy antics surrounding them. So, I mean, he really holds down that role really well.
That was one of the longer roles for us to find. It required an incredible amount of nuance, and we were thrilled to have Joseph join.
And I think the other thing that was uniquely interesting and challenging is when you first start, you only have the pilot script to go off of, but then as you read more, you kind of see how each character evolves, and that kind of shapes how you approach the casting process as well. And that was very much the case, like with those two characters. And Joseph's character was particularly challenging because I think a lot of those layers unfolded as you read more and more and got deeper into the story, and how his relationship with Amy kind of shifts and evolves as the story progresses.
And then there's the Emmy-nominated actress, Maria Bello. I mean, what a character for her to sink her teeth into. Here's a veteran actress who's been doing this for decades, and she just gets to play a total nut. I mean, when you read a character like this, does your brain just start flooding with actresses you've seen over the years? And how do you ultimately land on Maria Bello?
Those original lists were very long and very hard to pare down because there's a lot of fantastic actresses that we wanted to explore. But when you start, it's kind of the same as these other characters. When you start getting into the nuances of the characters and the fact that, like, we wanted Jordan to have kind of like a Midwestern grit. Like you knew that she knew maybe suburban white middle America, but and is now in this kind of like super elite rich world, and she needed to be able to navigate those worlds really well, but then obviously kind of have a slight tone deafness towards other worlds. And just being able to play all of those different colors was just something we were very excited to have Maria come on board to do.
What has it been like to see all these actors get these nominations? I mean, does that just, on top of your own nomination, and then the series is nominated, when you reflect back on being part of this show that's become this phenomenon and huge success, I mean, what are you feeling?
We were really so excited about the actors being nominated, as well as the rest of the crew as well. But yeah, I mean, especially having new faces be able to have that opportunity and to get the recognition they very much deserve, it was super exciting for us.
Yeah.
And you're part of their discovery story now. I mean, they'll always have that moment. Young Mazzino and Joseph Lee. It's just incredible.
Yeah, it's really wonderful to be a part of that. It's a little kind of like Wendy was saying, it's a bit of a gamble, right? Like you hope and you think that things are going to align and work out. And so when it actually does, and then whenever other people are able to see what you see, it feels incredibly rewarding.
Well, what a fun, incredible show that you've put together. And congratulations on the cast. Congratulations on your nomination and best of luck at the upcoming Emmy Awards.
Thank you very
so
much.
much.
Welcome to Gold Derby. I'm senior editor Denton Davidson here with Laura Rosenthal and Jodi Angstreich, Emmy-nominated casting directors for the Hulu limited series Fleishman Is in Trouble. Congratulations to both of you on this nomination. Laura, you've got a couple Emmys for Mildred Pierce and Olive Kittredge. This is your fourth career nomination. Does it ever get old? And how much fun was this news for you?
It's always thrilling and shocking. I share both emotions, always. Very exciting to be nominated for Fleishman.
And Jodi, how about you? How did you hear this news and celebrate? This is your second nomination. You two partnered up for Unbelievable, which was nominated a couple years ago. What was the nomination like for you? And talk about your partnership with Laura.
Well, my partnership with Laura, I started as an assistant with Laura 12 years ago and has built up, and she's mentored me for the past 12 years and is always.
Now she mentors me.
And I mentor. And we have been together for so long, and we have such a close-knit office. And it's been, such a joy. Mildred Pierce was actually the first more kind of permanent gig that I was at Laura's office. I was associate on that along with Mary Beth Fox, and our other associate, Kim Oshra, was our intern on that project. So Mildred Pierce was sort of like our first baby together, I feel like, and as a family. And then I was an associate on Olive Kittredge as well, and casting director on Unbelievable, and casting director here. And I heard about the nomination from the amazing casting department at ABC Signature. I got a text from Eric Solier, and I kind of in the back of my head, I knew that nominations were coming out soon. I didn't know when they were, and I certainly hadn't gone through the nominations yet, but started to get texts and super excited and so happy to, be recognized for.
And on our ongoing thread, just to mention Unbelievable, working together on Unbelievable, that's how we came on to Fleishman, because the producers of Unbelievable, Sarah Timberman and Susanna Grant, basically sent us the book of Fleishman.
Well, that leads me to my next question this is based on a book. Is that different for you to cast something based on something that already has some sort of audience? I mean, we have to find actors that are going to satisfy these people we already know or hope will love the show. It sort of has this built-in audience. Does it change things?
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting that we're just talking about this. I'll specifically say that Mildred Pierce was a book, Olive Kittredge was a book, Unbelievable was an article, and Fleishman Is in Trouble is a novel as well. So take it away, Jodi, after that.
I will say Fleishman has a very built-in fan base, and certainly, we wanted to do justice to that. I mean, I kind of always knew there was going to be a social media element on Fleishman. That was nothing that we ever thought about on the others that we've been discussing, and just that I knew that we were going to hear about it. Whoever we cast in these roles, and there's always going to be people who love and hate, and certainly there's a lot of hate online, but that definitely wanted to make sure that we kind of live up to everybody's promise while just living up to the characters on their own also.
Well, let's talk about Fleishman, because it earned 7 Emmy nominations, including Best Limited Series, as well as nominations for 2 of your actors. So the casting was a success. Claire Danes, where did you find this person? I believe she only has 10 Emmy nominations between acting and producing, and she plays Rachel Fleishman. Talk about why she was the perfect actress for this role, and what impresses you the most about her in general. And I mean, what a force of nature she is.
Well, I'll just say quickly that she is a fan of the book, and she is a fan of the role of Rachel, which was sort of a dynamic thing to have to work off of.
Absolutely. And the role of Rachel, I mean, I think Claire was definitely, a name from the very beginning that the team was all about, but the role of Rachel, we went through quite a process. We did audition people for that role. We did discuss other star names for the role, and kept coming back to Claire, and she's certainly can give you, Rachel is such a character that the audience kind of goes on this journey with her as we go through, the first couple of episodes. You sort of lean in towards her just like not being that likable, and her being like good riddance, from Toby's perspective. And then we see her perspective in episode 7, which Claire did such a beautiful job with, and really seeing how, she could be all of these different things at once. And certainly nobody cries like Claire Danes, my goodness.
Yeah. I mean, and she's a star. I mean, she's been the star of so many films and TV series, but she's willing to, take on a supporting role like this. And I love actors like that who, I mean, she's not leading all the way through, but she does come on strong. And those last couple episodes, especially.
You can't stop thinking about her, even if you don't see her. And that's the conceit of the sort of the novel that that I think really played well in the series. So even though we don't get all of her until episode 7, she's talked about, we see her, you envision her, you have an opinion about her, and she pops in and out, and and she sticks with you. And it isn't until we get her perspective do we understand, this is the role. This is quite a role.
The other thing with Rachel and a lot of our leads is we flash back quite a bit, and we see her in college years, and then we see her as the divorced mom. And so Claire is able to stretch that age gap in a really great way as well.
Lizzie Kaplan narrates the story, and then her character Libby really comes on strong in the latter part of the series. She's a great character actor. She can be funny. She can kill a dramatic scene. Talk about her and how thrilled you were for her nomination for this series.
So thrilled. I think we've, just been a fan for so long. I feel like we talk about.
I've always wanted to work on something that I got to say, Lizzie Kaplan isn't something I worked on, but I got to call.
It's like a constant name on our lips. And her voice was super important. That, how we're following her journey. And I think just, what she brought to Libby at the end is, just so relatable for so many women. And I know so many people are just like, Libby, Libby, Libby. Like it's all about, how that character shines. And she was written so beautifully also by Taffy Bradesser-Akner. But I think that Lizzie did.
She is the narrator. So there's something about, it's so human to think and be sure and tell everybody else what you know, and then change your mind and be able to make your audience, make the people that you are affecting also understand the human capacity to make a mistake or be a little less judgmental and be more open. And she does it with so much grace and humanity.
And Jesse Eisenberg is the focus of the series for most of it as Toby Fleishman. So let's talk about casting him and what that process was like, but then also how much time did it take to fill out the entire cast? You've got Adam Brody, the kids, Mira Mahoney and Maxim Swinton, and then so many great actors to just fill out the cast. What was, starting with Jesse, and then sort of how long the whole process takes for you to fill out a cast this incredible?
I'll let Laura talk about Jesse.
Well, I mean, nobody was, so when I don't know, maybe it'll be a footnote later. I don't know how long we were, we came onto the project before it was, we had a start date. So there were, and that was to go over lists for the leads, and thinking that we would cast Toby Fleishman first, but we talked about the other two as well. And so there was a huge amount of time that we were on before we were really casting. And when the directors came on, they went through our lists, and they were like, oh, it's Jesse Eisenberg. So that just sort of relaxed the process right there to say, okay, that's who we're going to go for. And it was like one of those obvious, of course it's Jesse Eisenberg, but it took us a little while till the team started to come on that we were able to realize that role.
And then the length of project in general, it was a long one. The unique thing about this, or I would say unique / challenge of this, is we shot most of it. We started shooting in January, and the show takes place in New York City, and the show takes place in the summer in New York City. So major props to our ADs and our line producer, because the schedules were really crazy, and figuring out how to shoot, like all of our exteriors were shot at the end, which was, I believe, it's like May. And so it was very split. Our actual casting process, I think, after we had Jesse and we had Lizzie before we started active casting. But like Laura said, it had been many, many months before that to get them. And then I think we were at, like, I want to say 8 to 10 months of casting for other things, which I joked with a friend who is a casting director who does half-hour shows, and he's like, "You 8 months for 8 episodes?" Like, I could have cast like 20 series for that. But like it definitely was a long process, and like the others were saying, it was during COVID, and certainly COVID always puts a monkey wrench in anything you do. And so that it kept extending, but we cast the show up until like 2 days before they were done shooting. Like, it was not one that we like cast and then they started shooting after we cast. We were casting all the way through.
Well, the extensive search and hard work paid off. And Laura and Jodi, congratulations on this well-deserved nomination, and best of luck at the upcoming Emmy Awards.
Thank you so much.
Welcome to Gold Derby. I'm senior editor Denton Davidson, here with Susie Farris, the Emmy-nominated casting director for Amazon Freeview's comedy Jury Duty. You were nominated once before for Mr. Robot in 2016. So what's it like to be back for such an unlikely show? Because I want to give you a little credit, because we'll talk maybe more about this later, but this show could have really gone off the rails. So what does this Emmy nomination mean for you? And to also see it get the nomination for Best Comedy Series?
Wow, it's always really exciting to be nominated, but specifically for this show, which was, you're right, it was something wildly different than anything else that I've ever worked on, and it could have gone incredibly wrong, this experiment that was sort of lightning in a bottle. So I was thrilled to obviously see the nomination, but more than that, I was so happy that our little show, which was considered such a dark horse, got the comedy nomination. That to me was really everything.
So everyone on this show is an actor except for one guy, Ronald Gladden, who thinks he's on a jury and has no idea the case is fake and everyone around him is an actor. So, but he does know that one of them is a famous actor, and that's of course James Marsden. So first of all, I want to talk about Ronald, who really made this show heartwarming and was just the most perfect person you could have found. Who is Ronald? How did you find him, knowing this was all fake? And what was it like just to see him flourish throughout the series?
Well, that's a good question. First and foremost, I will say that I was tasked with casting all of the actors on the show. Obviously all the jurors and all the, the judge and the lawyers and any expert witness who had to testify. But Ronald, thankfully, was not a task that I was given. He's a real person, as we know. And so that went, the producers were handling casting, in the reality sense. But he is a lovely, lovely person. And he is just, an eternal optimist. He says yes to life. He's smart. He's a great guy.
And this supporting cast, I mean, the judge, the bailiff, the fellow jurors, everyone, these are people who had to be great actors, but also absolutely unrecognizable to Ronald. So you can't go for any celebrities. They also have to be unbelievably funny. These are phenomenal actors. So how did you find so many great talents that were unknown?
I think we were casting during COVID, so we were using self-tapes as a tool for the auditions. And I know that self-tapes nowadays can be super controversial, but I think that there's a time and a place. And I think that this was the perfect medium for an actor to self-tape. We gave them 2 prompts. They could either choose character A or B, and then they would have to talk for a minute in that character. And it was obviously important that they came up with interesting things to say, that they made choices, yet weren't too crazy, so that they wouldn't give away the whole thing. They had to feel very credible. They had to feel like real people who you could actually run into and exist on a jury in Los Angeles.
How much of the script or the story were they aware of? I mean, did they know this was going to be what they were doing, is sort of faking it around this one unknowing person?
In the beginning, there was a lot of secrecy around what we were allowed to share, because obviously you don't want the whole thing to be up before you even start. So, when we put out a breakdown for the reps and everything, we were able to say it was for a streamer, it was a comedy. I think we said it was highly improvised, but we weren't giving away exactly what it was. So basically, when an actor taped themselves, they really didn't have much understanding of what it was for. And then we did a really wild callback that was positioned as a focus group, which I'm happy to talk about a little bit more. But once we brought actors back for a second step, then we shared more information with the reps about what it was, and that it was, a hybrid show, and there was going to be one real hero, but he was not going to be the butt of a joke. He was going to be the hero.
What do you mean by wild?
So
elaborate on that for me.
Well, I've never been a part of any callback session like this, but the producers had worked with, they had worked on some shows like this before. So it was their idea to have a callback that was positioned as a focus group. So the callback was actually at a focus group company, and the focus group company actually called in half the people who were actually regular people getting paid for a focus group. And then we called back actors. So for each focus group, we had about 6 lasting an hour each during the day. Each focus group consisted of half who were actors and half who were regular people. And the actors weren't told who the other actors were. So everybody was supposed to just think that they were part of a focus group and see how they could think quickly on their feet and, maintain their character.
How did you distinguish who was going to be part of the jury versus some of the other supporting characters? One of my favorites on the show is Rashida Oliowola. I hope I didn't butcher that. But she plays the bailiff. And I love her interactions and the way her relationship grows throughout the season with the jurors. How did you sort of differentiate casting those roles versus the jury?
We started off with the jury and had to sift through lots and lots of tapes. Once we started to put some of the some of the pieces together for the jury. Then we moved into the bailiff, then we moved into the judge, we moved into the attorneys. And it's interesting, Cassandra Blair, who was part of our jury, initially read for one of our bailiffs, and sort of, you know, we felt like she was more suited for the jury. And then Sheeds, Rashida, as she goes by, was just perfect for the bailiff. Perfect.
And the judge, Alan Barinholtz, he was an actual lawyer. So he has some sort of, did you have to find someone who understood the law in some manner to be able to improvise the way that he was forced to in some ways throughout the process?
We did. That's what we were looking for when we were looking for the judge and for the lawyers, because the nature of the show is that the scripts are basically a series of beats, but they're not written line for line. So whoever was going to play those roles had to have a pretty good understanding of the legal system and what sort of things would be very credible for a judge to say, and the process and that whole thing. So Alan, it was really fun being able to cast him, because in his teens, he wanted to be an actor, but then life didn't happen that way. And he's been living in Chicago as a lawyer all these years. And we know he has two very successful comedic sons, Ike and John. And this was like a dream for him. And he's now moved to LA. He's pursuing his acting career. He has an agent. I've cast him in 2 other shows since jury duty. So that was a really happy story for me.
I was going to say earlier, I mean, if these actors weren't working before, they should be working plenty now, because they're as funny as any actors I've seen on TV. What shocked you the most when you watched this show play out? I mean, did anyone that you cast sort of surprise you in any way, or what sort of caught your eye throughout the series?
You know, when I went into casting the show, it was really hard for me to visualize what this show was going to be. It was pitched to me as The Office meets the Joe Schmo show, but just the way that the whole thing came together, I really never could have imagined that they could have created an entire TV show that was not scripted per se, and all of these actors had to be so flexible and have the ability to pivot and go with Ronald and, you know, not blow their cover, that I was really amazed by all of their talent and the writing, the chair pants, the crazy scenarios that they came up with. I mean, I do think it was lightning in a bottle, and I laughed really hard watching it, which I think my fellow casting directors can attest to, that, you know, it's not always as great, you know, when we see it on screen as maybe it was when we read it, or vice versa. So I was proud.
Well, Susie, congratulations on your nomination, the series nomination, as well as James Marsden for Best Supporting Actor, and best of luck to you and the whole cast and crew at the upcoming Emmy Awards.
Thank you so much.
Welcome to Gold Derby. I'm senior editor Denton Davidson here with Erin Tomasello, the Emmy-nominated casting director for Peacock's reality competition program, The Traitors. I love how Alan Cummings says that, the host. So the series is now up for Best Competition Series. That had to be a whirlwind that morning. The nominations came out. How did you hear? What was your reaction? And how did you celebrate your first nomination?
Well, it was actually a funny story, because my glamorous life of finding out I was in the middle of casting finals. So that morning I watched them announce live, and they announced the first couple nominations, and then I had to go to work. So all of a sudden I'm in the middle of an interviewing someone, and my phone just starts blowing up. So it took everything inside of me not to start to cry, to be honest, and just such a wonderful feeling. Very exciting for my team and we were just thrilled.
And you have an extensive background in casting for reality TV. And I've seen a lot. I mean, I'm a reality TV junkie, and you've done shows like The Circle, America's Got Talent, MasterChef, The Bachelor years ago. So you've been around a while. So why that matters now is because you've got this new competition series, and you're taking a handful of sort of reality all-star legends and mixing them into a crowd of people that have never been on TV before. So what was more challenging, choosing those all-stars or finding the new cast?
Well, actually, our familiar faces were booked by a talent booker, so we knew they were wonderful. And I am a huge reality fan as well. I'm a Bravo celebrity freak. I love all of them, and so we knew what they were going to bring. My team and I were tasked with finding the everyday Americans, and reality casting, I'm so thrilled that it's finally getting the respect that it deserves because we work so hard. Just like you said, I've been at this for 18 years. I put my blood, sweat, and tears in it. I'm very, very passionate about it. Finding these civilians, they're not paid actors. These are everyday people that we, dig for and we find. My process was first learning about the show, right? And trying to dive in on who would be good on this. What do we need? I was told that it kind of resembles a game called Mafia or Werewolf. I'm not sure if you've heard of either of those. I had not. Some of my team members had. The younger ones had heard of them, and it was really interesting to learn about that. And so my process was looking into jobs. I wanted to find lawyers or private investigators, police officers, retired judges, people that were good at sniffing out things. And then on the opposite side of that, we needed gullables, right? We needed people that would believe others. And so, how do you find, are they preschool teachers, hairstylists, where do we get those? Just everyday salsa instructors. So it really was such a fun opportunity and great job to be a part of. And the magic really happens with those everyday civilians, to be honest, because we are finding raw talent that have never done a lick of TV. They have never, they're not doing a job. They're not paid actors. They don't know how to be in front of the camera. And it's really about finding them and having them share their stories and their heart and the true people. And it's just magical when you see it come out on screen.
And it was fun watching them interact with sort of these celebrity all-stars and not knowing who was the traitors. We can see that at home. When you're casting, you mentioned talking about like who can be investigating and who can be gullible, but did you think, who would be a good traitor? Because it wasn't just the famous faces that were traitors. It was, some of the civilians as well.
Absolutely. Yes. And it was so funny to see that play out as well, because you have reality fans like Michael Davidson, and he's obsessed with reality shows. So he knows who Brandy is. He knows who Suri is. He knows they will slit his throat in the end. But Andy and Quentin, they weren't reality fans. They didn't watch Survivor. They don't know how cutthroat she is. So, they were pretty innocent on that. What was your original question? Sorry, I went off track there.
If you were trying to figure out this person would be a good traitor.
Absolutely. So, and that was the fun part. You think you get, a private investigator or a retired judge, and they're going to be so wonderful at it. But once they get into the game, you've got a hairstylist that's killing it, and she knows who the traitors are opposed to the others. So we can go in with an idea and say, oh my gosh, this person's going to be fantastic at sniffing out who the traitors are, and then the exact opposite can happen. So I think that's what us viewers at home just enjoyed watching and playing along. I think that's why the show was such a huge hit.
When you watched along, did you have someone in mind that you thought was going to win? Like, who shocked you the most and how far they made it?
Well, I have to bring up Christian. Christian is a very special human being. I love him to death. He's an actor. He's a Hollywood actor. I thought he was going to be wonderful, and he was wonderful. He's also trained military, so I really had a lot of eggs in his basket. He was so much fun to watch, just so much energy. He really is like that in person as well. Just full ball of sunshine. But when he blew it for himself coming out that morning, that breakfast, and really started bringing the heat on himself, I just was dying inside, screaming at my TV. I was so proud of Andy and Quentin and how far they made it. Andy is a very special person to me, and they were just so important for me to showcase on television and have representation for the non-binary community. Something that my team and I are really focused on is diversity, inclusion, marginalized communities. And so we are always pushing for that. And I was just so pleased with the way they both played the game, and they played with heart. And even though it didn't come out in their favor, they made such an impact on me and my team and all of the viewers out there. And it was just a neat thing to watch.
And they held their own. I mean, you throw them in with Siri Fields. She's one of the Survivor greats. She's been called the greatest player to ever play Survivor and never win. And she was fantastic. I mean, this is a woman whose smile lights up the room, and she will just lie and deceive you straight to your face. So it was really fun to watch her ascend through the show and finally, you know, sort of get the win that fans of reality TV have been wanting her to get for so many years.
And she played a great game. She was Mama Bear. She was Mama Bear. You're the pressure, something I didn't realize initially casting the show. I knew we were going to have to find smart people. I knew we were going to have to find global. I knew we were going to have to find, you know, people that can play strategic. You know, a lot of the casting was done like who online plays these strategic games already. But what I didn't realize was that Suri was going to be so cutthroat and just come out. I mean, she just played a great game, and it was so wonderful to see it all play out for her.
Do you have sort of a Rolodex of people in your mind now? And how deep does your web go of people that have auditioned for reality shows that maybe aren't right for this one, but are right for this one? Do you sort of keep contact with people that you have to initially let go?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. Like I said, I've been doing this for 18 years. So when I first started, I would have to print, for The Bachelor, for instance, I would Google lawyers' offices in New York City, and I would print out a list, a ton page list, and I would just cold call. And I was on the phone all day long. I was actually at the forefront of LinkedIn. I actually talked them into doing a database blast for me for The Bachelor 15 years ago, which would never happen today for free. But now social media is so wonderful. This is like, it's really a blessing for reality casting directors because we get to see their pictures. We get to see what they look like. So especially with COVID, when we kind of got grounded, because what we used to do is hold huge open calls and travel the United States. And with COVID, we are now stuck behind a desk doing Zooms. So social media has been wonderful for us. We use Instagram. I can search hashtags. I can see them on TikTok. I can watch them. I can view them. So it's kind of a wonderful way and a really amazing tool for us to find great people.
Well, Erin, congratulations to you. Congratulations to the show. It's not easy to break through into that best reality competition program category. And best of luck to you at the upcoming Emmy Awards.
Thank you so much for having me, and congratulations to all the other nominees. It's an honor to be here amongst you all.
Welcome to Gold Derby's Casting Directors panel with Emmy-nominated casting directors Wendy O'Brien from Abbott Elementary, Charlene Lee and Claire Koonce from Beef, Laura Rosenthal and Jodi Angstreich from Fleishman Is in Trouble, Susie Farris from Jury Duty, and Erin Tomasello from The Traitors. What an all-star casting crew, and such a crucial element to any successful TV show. Obviously, the cast ultimately sells to the show, but nobody just wakes up and says, I want to be a casting director. So I want to hear from each of you. When did you discover this as a career path for you? And what was your very first job in a casting capacity?
I kind of have to jump in because I woke up one day and said, I want to be a casting director.
Did you?
Yeah, I was like in sixth grade. I had no idea. I really did not know what that meant, but I saw in credits the word. And so that I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to be a casting director. So I just jump in there with that.
I can tell my story really quick. I was a broadcast major, so I knew I had this great big personality. I didn't know what I was going to do to put it to use. I kind of wanted to be like a host or an actress. And so I took all kinds of broadcasting classes and was a news reporter, and finally made the jump. I'm from a very small town in Lake Tahoe, California, and made the jump to Los Angeles to make my dreams come true, and got down here and I was like, I cannot report the news. I need to work in something fun. And so that's how I got a chance with being a casting recruiter, which is literally you're on the streets with a clipboard, signing people up, asking them asking people if they'll do your TV show. And that's where I got my start. And I knew I was in the right business. I had so much fun with it. I'm a true fan of unscripted television and all television. So for me, it just made sense. And I love everything of it.
I will say that I was working on Wall Street. I lived in New York. I was working on Wall Street after college and looked at the corner offices and realized that I didn't want to be in any of those. So I quit my job and I started bartending, and I interned in a casting office and fell in love with it. And so then I started working my way up, and I have to thank Laura Rosenthal right here, who introduced me to the producers of Wet Hot American Summer. And that was the first movie I ever cast on my own. And I feel like that really paved the way. Thanks, Laura.
I love that.
I mean, I think I wanted to know what people were thinking since I was very, very little. Jodi maybe knows this story. I put a little thing outside of my bedroom door saying 5 cents for advice. And I convinced my sisters to come in so I could just listen to them, so I could just give them advice. And, cut to read an article about Julia Taylor. I thought, oh, I could do that. I met people from NYU at a club I was working at called the Knitting Factory back in New York in the late 80s. And I got an interview with Julia Taylor and Ellen Lewis. They weren't looking for anybody, but I kept hounding them and ended up starting in their office as an intern. And my first job was Woody Allen's short film, New York Stories. And I talk about real people. I hit the road and just found real people for him, and just loved actors, and cast student films, and I've been stuck ever since.
Wow. Well, I'll jump in. Wendy, I grew up on a farm as well, and so I went to school actually for music, and it wasn't until later in my college career that I added on a directing degree, and I've loved working with actors. That was the only part of directing that I liked. So I came out to Los Angeles to be a manager because that was the closest relationship they had. And Charlene and I both started, what was that, 15 years ago now, started working for managers. And literally day 2 of my first job, I was like, well, no, I want to be in the room, not getting people in the room. So it was just kind of like, I knew from there I wanted to be in casting. So my first casting was like a master's thesis film, a student film, something like that, or some kind of like student web series, because I knew I wanted to be in casting and I had no access to it at the time. But found my way here.
When I was in college, we did a program where we were out in LA for a month, and we had to pick a concentration within entertainment, and I wound up picking casting. And it seems kind of insane, but I cold called and emailed different casting directors, and fortunately a few of them spoke to me and allowed me to pick their brain, and it made me realize I wanted to go into castings.
And I did an internship in college at the University of Washington, and my first show was Northern Exposure, and I worked for Patty Callis, and that was my jump in.
I can't help but look around this panel, and it's 7 women, all nominated for Emmys. Is this one of the fields of Hollywood that is female dominated? And if so, why do you think that is? And does anyone want to speak to that? And what does it make you feel like when you look around this panel?
I'll jump in on the unscripted side. And then I could let you ladies speak on the scripted side. When I first started, this was a very male-dominated field. And I still think it is today. We have a lot of males in it, but as strong, powerful women, we are taking over. No, we do have a lot of women now. And all 4 of the ladies that are, there's 4 of us all together. My 3 other producers that are nominated with me in this category are females as well. So I'm proud to say that.
And Laura, what were you going to say about film and scripted TV?
Me?
Yeah.
About film and scripted TV? Oh,
I mean, just in terms of
I think intuition. I think women have, a greater sense of intuition, and we're just cooler gender. And usher it all in. We're the start. We're kind of, we funnel it all in. We're the nuts and bolts of it all. And I think it's just women. I was going to say something else, but it's women for a reason.
I think what we do is we have to be very nurturing to the actors, and I think it's to create a warm room to get the best out of actors and get what you need. But I think it's also a very political role that we have. We deal with producers, we deal with networks, we deal with agents and managers, and I think there's a lot of multitasking, and I think that these are a lot of skills that sort of go hand in hand with, you know, what women tend to be good at. Not to say that there aren't fantastic men who work in this business, but I do think it's dominated by women, and it's really nice to be surrounded by smart, creative, powerful women.
Yeah. Well, and then to capitalize on that as well, I think there's because you have to speak a lot of different languages. You have to speak an actor language, you have to speak a producer language, and those sorts of things. But also, it is a largely unsung profession. And you know, a lighting designer can sit down with a director and they'll be like, okay, here, or a costume designer can sit down and a director will be like, oh, I sat down with my costume designer and we came up with all these ideas and this is what we came up with together. But a little bit of our job is to make two people feel like they found each other and kind of capture that lightning in a bottle, like Wendy was saying. And so I think sometimes our profession can go quite a bit unsung, which it's really, really lovely to be recognized in this capacity. And I do think that women might be a little bit more used to that. And so it's really, really great to see that changing. But I think that may be one of the reasons that men maybe have not stayed in this industry as long-term as women have.
And Wendy, what for you are some of the biggest challenges in the industry for casting directors? Is it, you know, is it like the budget or finding the perfect actor and the studio doesn't think they're famous enough? Or what are some of the challenges that you go through as a casting director?
Well, I think budget for sure. It seems it's just getting tighter and tighter and tighter. The orders are getting smaller. So personally for us, you know, we're always having to we have a faster turnaround now. I mean, Abbott's a gift that it's 22 episodes, but sometimes it's 6 episodes, sometimes it's 8, and you're trying to fill your dance card with just a very rapid schedule or a quick, 6 episodes doesn't take very long. So that, and that the budgets and that the actors are the limitations that they're putting on the actors to stay available for one series, but then they have 10 months of no work. I think that's part of what everyone's fighting for right now too, is to have more freedom to make a career as an actor. We're all in that together.
And Charlene, what is the first piece of advice to any actor who wants to be on a TV show? What would you say to them when they submit a tape or walk into a room? What does a casting director want to see from them, aside from them being a good actor?
I think to not be afraid to bring part of yourself to the role that you're auditioning for, and to have a unique point of view with the character you're auditioning for. That would be my piece of advice.
Laura, how about you? What would you say to actors coming into the studio? We may have just lost Laura. So let's go to Claire. What's your piece of advice?
I think that a lot of actors step into a room thinking it's a pass-fail situation, like they either are going to get the job or they're not. And that's not the case at all. It's the beginning of a relationship. This is a hello. This is us getting to know each other. And maybe it happens for this job. Maybe it happens on another job, on another project, like Wendy was saying, or I'm sure Susie experiences, I'm sure all of you experience this a lot, where when someone comes close, when you develop a relationship with an actor, you end up looking for roles where you think they're going to be wonderful and showcased. And so, yeah, it's not a pass-fail situation. It's the beginning of a relationship. And so feeling a little bit centered in knowing that you can walk in with some confidence.
And you can lose a role and it doesn't mean you're a bad actor. It just
absolutely
so many things that can take you in one direction or the other. Jodi, how about you? What's your top piece of advice?
First, I want to apologize for Laura. She just texted me her computer just died. So,
Okay.
and she doesn't have a charger. So my apologies for Laura. She's out of juice. I think one thing I have been saying recently, I feel like with the advent of self-tapes have been around forever, but with the addition of them being our constant right now, self-tapes is just to try not to overthink so much, because actors now have too much ability to do 50 takes and trying to choose. And I think that can go for anybody in any profession. As I certainly am an overthinker, but I think that a lot of times it's that first take that's the best one, and trying not to like nitpick everything. And that goes for after a Zoom audition as well. It's like, you know, sometimes it's just like you just need to go for it and not overthink.
Susie, how about you?
I think that actors, I would want actors to know that we are actually their cheerleaders, and we're really hoping when they come in the room that they nail it, that they are the answer to our problem, because this is once we get to start ticking off the boxes of the roles that we need to cast. But I would also say that there is an actor for every role, and like everyone else is saying, that we keep a mental Rolodex. And just because you don't get this job, you could be right for the next one. And that's very much how I cast jury duty. All the actors who I've loved from previous shows that I've worked on, I mean, you better believe I asked every single one of them to tape, because I didn't have the construct of you have to cast this particular character. So now it's like, I've loved this person and never got to cast them.
Wendy, what would you say?
I love all these answers. I'm like, oh, that would be so fun. Susie, good. Yeah, I think I kind of got lost on the question actually, because I was listening to all the answers, but
Just your piece of advice that you would give someone coming into the audition room or sending in a tape to get the attention or succeed.
it's all a version of that. I mean, really, it's just bring your version, not what you think we're looking for. Bring your take on it, not what you think the answer is, because your take will be unlike anyone else's. And that sometimes is that lightning in a bottle, where the producers didn't even see it that way. And then they hear it, a completely fresh, interesting version, whether they end up shooting that or not, you know, that'll be determined, but that may be the difference of the role.
And Erin, it's a little different for reality TV. So talk about that and what you look for in casting someone for reality television.
Yeah, and even though it's different, these ladies hit the nail on the head, right? I really need people to dig in deep and just be themselves. I need them to not tell me what they think I want them to tell me and what I want to hear. And the magic really does happen when they are just truly themselves. They're vulnerable, they're raw, they share their flaws, you know, relatability, all of that stuff. And then let's be honest, we need energy. We need them to fill a room. You know, whether, you know, even though it's reality and it's unscripted, there is a role that we like them to fill. So are they the villain? Are they, you know, the humor? So all of that advice was wonderful.
And just a quick final question, present company excluded. What's a film or TV casting that has been somewhat recent that was inspiring to you, that just blew you away or impressed you? You're just like, wow, I love this casting. I love, even if it's just a single character on a single show. What would you say? I'm going to start with Claire just because she's laughing.
I'm laughing because I just watched The Menu again last night, and that casting, I mean, every single one of those actors, I adore and I love. And so I was just talking to a friend of mine who knows nothing about casting, and I was raving about all the different actors, and they knew none of the names. And I was just like, I just love every single one of those actors, and to see them all together is great.
Who is next? Who's ready?
I'll jump in. I'm always willing to jump in. First of all, I have to give props to jury duty because I'm just obsessed with it. And I love that it has the real person in there too. So that was so amazing to me. Shameless and Euphoria are so wonderful. White Lotus was a big one for me as well. So congratulations to all those shows.
I'll go next.
Okay.
The two that immediately popped into my head were the casting on The Bear and the casting on Severance, who Rachel Tenner, who I used to work with, cast.
Wendy, how about you?
We had The Bear. I thought The Bear was every twist and turn I loved. I thought the cast was just so understated and annoyingly great.
Jodi?
Super hard to choose. There's so many, and certainly Present Company excluded, because definitely all of your shows. But I will give a shout out to a show called Paper Girls on Amazon that I watched recently. Like such great young people, like 13-year-olds who feel like 13-year-olds, who feel like actual like real people, and their adult counterparts, including Ali Wong. Really great casting.
And Susie, you can wrap us up here.
Wow, this is tough. You guys all just named so many great shows, and you guys cast so many great shows. I'm gonna give a shout out to the great. I will watch Nicholas do anything, and I love all the Brits in the show, some of whom I wasn't familiar with before. So I'm gonna go with the great.
Well, all fantastic choices, and congratulations again to each of you for your Emmy nominations this year. Such fantastic work. You should all be proud of. I'm sure you are. And congratulations. Good luck at the upcoming Emmy Awards, and we can't wait to see you there.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank
And congratulations, everybody.
Yeah, congratulations, everyone. So nice to meet you all.